Day, and this is Africa Update coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo, and I will be doing the show, and after the news we'll get exactly what's happening on Africa Update.
SABC News, the African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and greetings to our listeners. Uganda's opposition candidate Bobi Wine says he was beaten alongside his aides and supporters by security forces while campaigning in the country's north. This an escalation of violence ahead of the country's presidential election on the 15th of January. In a series of posts on his X over the weekend, Wine said he was hit in the face with a cane and that other supporters were also bitten and had to be hospitalized as they approached a campaign venue in Gulu, the biggest city in Uganda's north. Wine, a pop star turned politician whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, is challenging 81-year-old President Yoweri Museveni for a second time after coming second in the last election in 2021. South Africa's National Police Commissioner, Fani Masemula, will today visit Sourceville west of Pretoria after the weekend killing of 12 people at a local drinking establishment. Police say 3 gunmen allegedly entered the tavern at the local hostel in the early hours of Sunday morning and opened fire on patrons at random. At least 3 significant tavern shootings have been reported in Pretoria since 2024, including 2 links to the same illegal tavern in Sourceville, Atteridgeville, and another in Centurion area in the Gauteng province. Nigeria says its military helped thwart the attempted coup in Benin yesterday morning after it had been asked to help from its neighbors. A statement from the Nigerian President Office said Abuja had sent fighter jets to target the coup plotters in Benin's main city. The BBC's Thomas Nardi.
Late Sunday afternoon, there were heavy explosions in the capital, which suggested airstrikes. Later, a Nigerian presidency statement confirmed that its ground troops and air force were in action in Benin. They had helped the soldiers in Benin to flush out the coup plotters from the state TV, and then also a military base where they had regrouped. We also know that a regional bloc ECOWAS has said it was deploying troops to Benin with immediate effect to secure the country.
Leadership expert Professor Mazwe Majola says it will be hard to prevent members of the African National Congress Party in South Africa from talking about leadership succession. Majola has been speaking ahead of the ANC National General Council, which starts today. The 4-day NGC is the party's second highest decision-making body between National Conference and is aimed at reviewing implementation of past conference resolution. There have been reports of a campaign to dissolve the ANC President Ramaphosa before the end of his tenure in 2027. Majola says tabling new policy proposals and reviewing the implementation of past conference resolutions without talking about the next leadership will be a daunting task.
While yes, you can discourage members from talking about who's going to take over next in 2027, but you cannot control them from talking about who did well, was done correct, was not done correct when it comes to progress and performance. But when they assess the progress and the performance, they've got to do it comprehensively, because you can't assess the policies and the progress without talking about the actors and the implementers.
Lastly, the South African Weather Service has issued a warning of severe thunderstorms expected in several provinces from midday Central African time. Residents in the KwaZulu-Natal province, parts of the Free State and Northwest provinces are urged to take immediate precaution. Tato Lezaba reports.
Forecasters warn that these storms could bring major infrastructure damage and sudden flash flooding. With many motorists traveling for the festive season, authorities are also urging drivers to exercise extreme caution. Roads may become dangerously slippery, visibility could drop without warning, and flooding may occur suddenly. Drivers are advised to slow down, increase following distance, and switch on headlights to stay safe.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News. I'm Oneli Nsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, South African football legend has challenged Mohaou Nkota to emulate him at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And the Kenyans dominate the Valencia Marathon. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
We're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, on OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. You can join us in conversation on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. Coming up in this hour,
shida ni mingi. Ama wenyewe wanajitoa wanaenda kushamba.
When the rebels attacked our village, we fled to Uganda.
Niye kwanza maisha yangu inakatala.
I lost my wife and 4 children.
Uganda hosts more refugees than any other African country, but the country is now overwhelmed. And Benin's President Patrice Talon says the situation is completely under control in his country after the government thwarted an attempted coup. As we say, a lot coming up in this hour. And today on #Africa Update, Ask Benin's President Patrice Talon says the situation is completely under control in his country. Now, after the government thwarted an attempted coup, thanks to loyalists, soldiers that will support him from Nigerian forces. Now, our question to you today is, are we likely to see more coups or attempted coups taking place on the African continent as more countries go to elections? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update Us.
The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
There's a Ugandan lawmaker. His name is Atkins Katusabe, who speaks with an American accent in Parliament. So the parliamentarians have complained that we don't understand what you are saying.
Listen to him. Come on. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a disaster that could cause an extinction of our entire community.
Going to procedure.
Mr. Speaker, the English that is trying to put this matter here is confusing a number of us and making us miss very serious issue. It needs to speak the common English of Uganda. The English is too much.
Need a piece of paper so that we'll be able to read. The English is too much. I picture him saying order, out of order.
Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the Morning Switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Police in Nigeria's Imo state have discovered decomposed and mutilated corpses following a raid on a hotel and a private mortuary allegedly owned by a suspected kidnapper. The discovery has raised suspicions of illegal organ harvesting operations. Imo police spokesperson Henry Okoye stated that forensic experts have secured evidence and all accomplices will be brought to justice. An investigation into suspected organ harvesting activities has commenced. Additional evidence was recovered after the suspect's residence was searched, though no further details have been disclosed. The suspect has now been declared wanted. And still in Nigeria, in just news taking place across the African continent, about 100 children abducted from a Catholic school in Nigeria last month have been freed. The children are expected to be reunited with their parents during the course of a day today. Details about the release of the 100 school children remain unclear, including whether it was secured through negotiation or by force and whether any ransoms were paid. It is unclear who is behind these kidnappings, but most analysts believe they are carried out by criminal gangs looking for ransom payments. However, a presidential spokesperson says the government believes they are the work of jihadist groups. These are just news coming out of the African continent.
The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 11 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Benin's President Patrice Talon says the situation is completely under control in his country after the government thwarted an attempted coup thanks to loyalist soldiers with support from Nigerian forces. A group of soldiers announced on Sunday on state television that they had ousted President Talon. That sparked swift response from loyal army forces joined by airstrikes and troop deployments from neighboring Nigeria. Benin's military and security forces said around a dozen soldiers had been arrested, including those behind the coup bid. And for more on this, elections expert Tenda Mbanje joins us on the line just to unpack the latest developments. Now, Tenda, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon.
West Africa seems to be in the grips of coups. What do you make of the latest thwarted coup plot in Benin? And is there a valid reason for this?
I think that West Africa at this stage is, as a region, is going through a crisis. And we've seen that in the past year, since 2020, we've had several coups, both those that were successful and those that were not, being attempted or being carried out in the region. And most of those that were successful, there have been impunity insofar as the region, either they have suspended them, but without no real consequence of military leaders or coup leaders in that regard. So what we see is that I think the coups are linked to economic challenges. They are linked to issues of misgovernance. In this case of Benin, we see that the president he has positioned his finance minister to take over. I think there's a segment of people that are the population that is unhappy with it, and also he has managed to some extent to dismantle opposition. So you see that sometimes the coups are caused by internal challenges, governance challenges. But however, the timing of the coup, the preparation of the coup, and also there was no consensus. That's why it is failed. But however, there is no justification for coups. There are other ways in which challenges that are facing citizens or governance processes could be addressed.
Now, just the coup was thwarted, and just looking at President Talon, does he clearly has the right people on his side. Looking at how Nigerian forces were able to come in and assist in thwarting this coup attempt. Let's talk about the people that are supporting the current president.
The advantage that he has is that Nigeria has a vicinity to Benin, and of course, I think he's in good books with the current government in Nigeria. And also, we see also that there were reports that the French military or the French embassy had housed him. There were so many reports that are circulating online. Clearly, he had some form of support. But however, if there was delay in the support, the coup could have been successful. If there was no urgent response from Nigeria, the coup could have been successful. So even the rapid response forces that he has managed to repel the coup plotters could have been overpowered if Nigeria could have. So the role of Nigeria was critical in thwarting this coup. I don't think it was purely internal repelling of the coup. I think the external actors played a critical role in thwarting this, because I would assume that the coup leaders had somehow knowledge in how they could how could they go about it if there was no assistance from external actors.
Do you think an election will take place next year with everything that's happened?
I think the election will take place, but the current tension, the political tension, I was listening to one of the analysts, former executive director of communications of ECOWAS. He has been pointing to political tensions in the country. He is also pointing to some failings of the government, and he is also pointing to succession issues. So the election will take place, but it's likely that the election will be contested because the election will take place in an environment that is tense, in an environment where already there are grievances around the succession and how the current president has managed the governance structures and how he has managed to destroy other political opponents. So there are grievances around that, but elections will take place and it will be contested.
What happens now to the soldiers who attempted this coup?
I've been reading on the kind of punishment, or rather the penalties that are associated with treason under Benin laws. They will face up to 10 to 20 years in prison, and and to some extent, in exceptional circumstances, they could face life imprisonment. So obviously, you would look at the coup leaders. They will face high charges, and then their subordinates settle slightly lower penalties. So they are in for it. They will be they've committed a very serious offense, treason. It's the highest offense in the land, and they will pay for it by serving long-term in prison, and if not, life imprisonment.
And the reaction of the citizens with everything that's unfolded?
Yes, I think the citizens, from what I've been reading, they did not like the coup. They did not support it. It was widely condemned. In any case, it was a premature coup. There were no really compelling reasons that could have necessitated the coup, except the internal problems that could have been addressed through other channels. So the citizens themselves, they are not also want to get into the cohorts of regimes that are in West Africa that are under military rules. Once you're under a military rule, elections are not likely to happen. dictatorship intensifies. We have seen it in all the countries where military takeovers have taken place. There has been deterioration of democracy and governance institutions.
Well, Tenda, thank you for joining us on Africa Updates. This is where we'll leave it.
Thank you so much.
That's Tenda Mbanje, an elections expert, joining us on the line.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is 20 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Uganda hosts more refugees than any other African country, close to 2 million people fleeing war and hunger. But the country that once offered a progressive and hopeful model is now overwhelmed. At Nakivale settlement, new arrivals are finding a system stretched to breaking point. Michael Baleke has more.
Thousands arriving, exhausted, hungry, and unsure of what comes next. Lawrence Nyirabakoneza and Innocent Sebunani are just two of the hundreds of thousands forced to flee a new surge of violence in eastern DR Congo.
Shida ni mingi. Ama wenyewe wanajitoa wanaenda kushamba.
When the rebels attacked our village, we fled to Uganda. Some women were raped, husbands were taken away, and others were killed as they tried to cross the border.
Niye kwanza maisha yangu inakatala.
I lost my wife and 4 children. I only managed to escape with 1 child, and we're happy to be alive. But the challenge is that I don't have a job to support myself. We only rely on handouts from UNCHR.
For decades, Uganda welcomed refugees with something rare: freedom of movement, access to land, and the chance to rebuild with dignity. Today, Monica Mugisha, the commandant of the Nakivale refugee settlement, says that promise is fading. Settlements like Nakivale are full and resources are running out.
We are supposed to protect them, but our girls are getting married at an early stage. The young children have been forced to go on the street. Previously, the other month, we brought back 70 children from Mumbarara. They are going to city centers to start begging.
At the health center, staff said disease and malnutrition are rising as clinics struggle to cope. In the queue, refugee mothers like Saraphine Minane are simply hoping their children will be seen.
My child has kwashiorkor. Doctors say we may need to feed him, but getting what to eat is a struggle.
Uganda still holds its doors open, but it can no longer carry the weight alone. Aid groups warn this could be the end of a model once hailed as a global solution. The UN Refugee Agency says funding is at its lowest in 10 years. And Frank Walusimbi says crises from Gaza to Ukraine have pushed Uganda down the priority list.
People are still coming in from the DRC, from South Sudan, and we've seen lots of arrivals from Sudan as well. So the number is growing, and as we speak, we have over 1.96 million refugees in the country, hosted in the different settlements.
Uganda has carried the burden for the world, but the burden is now becoming impossible to manage. Without renewed funding and political commitment, the refugee model once celebrated globally may soon collapse, leaving millions in limbo. Michael Baleke, SABC News, Nakivale, Western Uganda.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
The United Nations Human Rights Chief is warning that Sudan risked another al-Fashir amidst fierce fighting that was now spreading across the central Kordofan region that is raising fresh fears of further atrocities. The paramilitary rapid support forces seized the capital of North Darfur last month following a year-long siege marked by widespread killings of civilians, sexual violence and torture, among other atrocities. The group has been locked in a battle since April 2023, with the Sudan Armed Forces as the focus of fighting now shifts to the three oil-rich Kordofan states, amid reports that the United States is considering a broad range of sanctions on groups blocking efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Sudan. Show Bryce Peace has more.
It's a brutal conflict that has killed tens of thousands of Sudanese and brought the historically known breadbasket of Africa to its knees. Fertile lands now battlefields, triggering the largest displacement crisis in the world. Volker Turk is the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights.
I fear another wave of atrocities in Sudan amid a surge in fierce fighting across the Kordofan region. We must not allow Kordofan to become another El Fasher. Since the 25th of October, when Rapid Support Forces captured Bara City in North Kordofan, my office has documented at least 269 civilian deaths from aerial strikes, artillery shelling, and summary executions. There have also been reports of retaliatory killings, arbitrary detention, abductions, sexual violence, and forced recruitment, including of children.
The UN's humanitarian team in Sudan condemned the escalating violence across the Kordofan region and the ongoing sieges that have cut off multiple cities. They expressed deep concern about continued attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure, warning that the violence is restricting access to food, medicine and essential supplies and limiting farmers' access to their fields and markets, heightening the risk of famine spreading across the region. Communities trapped, facing extreme hardship and limited access to essential services.
There are growing concerns about the use of hateful and divisive speech that risk fueling the violence. The humanitarian situation in the besieged cities of Kaduli and Dilling is dire, with famine confirmed in Kaduli and risk of famine in Dilling. All parties are blocking humanitarian access and operations. Life-saving aid must be allowed to reach those who face starvation. The intensified violence in the past months has also triggered mass civilian displacement. Safe passage for those fleeing the horror of famine, death and destruction is essential and a human rights imperative.
Amid reports, the United States is considering widening sanctions against the warring parties, in addition to measures imposed after a State Department legal determination in January that the RSF and allied militias had committed genocide in Sudan. Listen to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
The president's taken on this issue of Sudan personally, not send out deputies to do it. Again, far away from the United States, because he's the only leader in the world that can bring it about to an end, not to mention all the other peace deals.
At the signing of a peace treaty between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda Thursday, this from Kenya's President William Ruto, also present at the ceremony.
As we celebrate progress in the DRC, we must not look away from other crises. I want to ask you respectfully, Mr. President, that in your quest for global peace, to support efforts to resolve the humanitarian catastrophe in Sudan.
As the UN's Turk called on all countries with influence on the parties to pressure them to stop the carnage.
Once again, I urge all states with influence over the parties to take immediate action to halt the fighting and stop the arms flows that are fueling the conflict. Have we not learned our lessons from the past? We cannot stand idly by and allow more Sudanese to become victims of horrific human rights violations. We must act, and this war must end now.
South Africa in October called on both the SAF and RSF to immediately and unconditionally implement a verifiable cessation of hostilities and called on external actors and countries involved in the crisis to adhere to their obligations under international law. I'm Sherwin Bryce Pease in New York.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à dire ça? Est-ce que vous avez
observé un certain nombre d'événements dans la vie? Est-ce que c'était par rapport à une expérience? Est-ce que vous avez rencontré des choses qui vous ont dit, il faut de la patience, comme ça les choses vont venir au bon moment et le bon Dieu pourra peut-être me visiter?
Oui, c'était justement un conseil que le Seigneur m'a fait inspirer pour donner à son peuple, parce qu'il y a la plupart des gens, pendant que Dieu bénit les autres, ils pensent que Dieu les a oubliés, et pendant que Dieu ouvre pour les autres, ils pensent que peut-être Dieu n'a pas pu écouter leurs prières. Alors ce n'est pas le cas. Alors Dieu bénit tout un chacun de nous avec son temps. Donc le temps de Dieu est toujours le meilleur dans la vie de tout un chacun de nous.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za. Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update, only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Oh, today on hashtag Africa Update Asks, Benin's President Patrice Talon says the situation is completely under control in his country after the government thwarted an attempted coup thanks to loyalist soldiers with support from Nigerian forces. Now, our question to you today is, are we likely to see more coups or attempted coups taking place in Africa as more countries go to elections? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126. Hashtag Africa Update Asks. Let's go to the news.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Benin's President Patrice Talon says the situation in the country is completely under control after government thwarted an attempted coup thanks to loyalist soldiers with support from Nigerian forces. Uganda's opposition candidate Bobi Wine says he was beaten alongside his aide and supporters by security forces while campaigning in the country's north. This an escalation of violence ahead of the country's presidential election on the 15th of January. And the head of the Israeli military has said the position to which Israeli forces have withdrawn in Gaza is a new borderline. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Let's kick off with football news. South African football legend Shaun Bartlett has set a challenge for current attacker Mohaung Gota to emulate him and score a brace at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Bartlett, who is the second all-time leading national team goal scorer with 29 goals, believes the current team has all the qualities to impress in North America next year. A 53-year-old remains the only player from South Africa to have scored a brace at the World Cup against Saudi Arabia in 1998 and says Ngota is one current player capable of emulating that feat.
So, I gave Mohaung Gota the challenge. I said to them, listen, I stopped playing 20 years ago and I'm still second all-time leading goal scorer. I want you to break that record. I want you to score 2 goals in a World Cup. And he's taken the challenge. So Mohaung knows exactly what he needs to do. First game, maybe even possible against Mexico. It's a repeat of 2010. And hopefully we can do the same also if we get Denmark, if they go all the way and make the group stage. So
South Africa are placed in Group A alongside Mexico, Korea Republic and the European Playoff Path D winner between Denmark, North Macedonia, Czech Republic and Ireland at the FIFA World Cup draw. And the pairing of Mexico and South Africa in the pool brings back the 2010 memories when the country hosted the prestigious competition held in Africa for the first time. Bafana coach Hugo Bruce insists it will not be an easy pool, as some may feel, but is hopeful of still advancing as one of the best placed third finishers.
So it will be difficult for us to be second or first. But at the other side, with the new World Cup, the first 8 of third places can go through. So we have to focus on that, and maybe we can be one of the best first and third places.
On to motor racing. Newly crowned Formula One world champion Lando Norris says he's proud to have won his first world title in his own way. Norris claimed his maiden Drivers' Championship to complete McLaren's first title double since 1998 with a perfectly judged drive to finish third behind Red Bull's winner Max Verstappen and teammate Oscar Piastri. The fresh-faced Brighton thanked his team, family and friends for their support in his success.
I've achieved my dream, that little boy's dream. Me as a 6-year-old, like seeing it on TV, thinking, "Wow, I want to do that," and now I'm here and achieving it. This is crazy. So I'll always have to start by saying a big thanks to my parents, my mum, my dad, my brother, my sisters, the people who have been there since day one. But boy, yeah, a hell of a journey. Many years with McLaren, ups, downs. But this year I managed to say thank you for all of it in one big go.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lengwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Siyabangena manje. Vito Jabulani Nkolele iMagoda. Jabulani is a young man from Giyani in Limpopo in South Africa. Very easy guy, taking things easy. To know me is to know that I love what I do, which I'm crazy about it. So when you hear me on radio, expect the best. Expect great music. Expect great content. Expect 180 minutes of nothing but fun. You'll find me on the morning reset, 3 to 6 a.m., Monday to Friday. Siyabangena baba. Ay. Mbuleke.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon. Time for our first look at the business news this afternoon. And in our top story, the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, NUMSA, is expected to march to the office of the presidency in Pretoria today to demand government's urgent intervention on the closure of smelters in the country. The union is protesting against the planned job cuts of over 5,000 workers at companies like Glencore, Samancor and Alma Investments. The union is calling on the GNU to declare a moratorium on retrenchments and create incentives to boost the local industry while reducing electricity tariffs. NUMSA National Spokesperson Phakamile Hlubi-Majola.
Well, we have given them until the 12th of December to respond in writing, and that might seem like a tight deadline, but the reality is that these policy conversations have been ongoing for months, and our government has just not taken these matters seriously enough. They've been very slow to respond, and now this is having a real impact. So that does not necessarily mean that by the 12th of December we expect bold industrial policies to be implemented. It just means that they must commit to these measures, or at least commit to a plan that enables us to implement these measures, because we cannot afford to lose more than 5,000 jobs in the sector.
South African supermarket retailer Spar Group reported a decline in full-year profit due to higher financing costs and a higher effective tax rate, despite improved overall performance. The retailer said diluted headline earnings per share, a key profit measure from continuing operations, fell 8.96% to 795.4 cents for the 52 weeks ended September 2025 from 873.7 cents a year earlier. A World Bank International Debt Report suggests that Angola and Mozambique rank among the top 5 countries globally when it comes to costs of interest on public debt relative to gross national income, GNI. In 2023 and 2024, Mozambique is noted for having the highest ratios of interest payments to exports and GNI, while Angola ranks 10th for interest to exports and 4th for interest to GNI. Policy and Research Advisor Helio Gulich says these countries are oil and gas economies and highly dependent on natural resources.
And also these economies that highly dependent on the extractives, inflation or something in economic terms, it means that government expenditure starts becoming higher, and then the economy collapses into high debts. Or I mean, the need to have a debt, to have a loans is higher, then the countries are not able to pay. So then they are paying through the natural resources such as gas and oil.
The United Nations announced a significantly reduced aid budget of $23 billion, acknowledging a decline in donor funding amidst rising humanitarian needs. This budget will exclude millions in urgent need, forcing the UN to prioritize the most desperate cases. UN Aid Chief Tom Fletcher highlighted the severe challenges, citing cuts that result in difficult decisions, inadequate funding, and increased risks to staff in conflict zones. A year prior, the UN had aimed for a $47 billion appeal for 2025, which was scaled back due to diminished support from major donors like the US and Germany. India's fuel consumption reached a 6-month high in November, rising 5.5% from October to 21.27 million metric tons. This increase marks a 3% rise compared to the same month last year. Gasoline sales totaled 3.52 million tons, down 4.1% from October, but up 2.6% year-on-year. Diesel consumption rose 12.2% month-on-month to 8.55 million tons, a 4.7% increase from last year. Liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, usage also rose by 7.1%, while naphtha sales fell by 19.1%. Bitumen consumption increased by approximately 37.9% from October, standing at 0.91 million tons, and fuel oil usage rose 12% year-on-year, totaling 0.56 million tons. And now taking a look at the indicators, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 449. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 15. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shillings 75, and the Zambian kwacha is at 23 kwacha and 1 this afternoon. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 43. Russia 75 rubles 87. In India it's 89 rupees 89. China 7 yuan 7, and South Africa $1 is trading at 16 rand 92 cents this afternoon. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,211 per ounce. Platinum $1,665 per ounce, and Brent crude oil is at $63.26 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bontle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Siyabangena manje. Vito Jabulani Nkolele iMagoda. Jabulani is a young man from Giyani in Limpopo in South Africa. Very easy guy, taking things easy. To know me is to know that I love what I do, which I'm crazy about it. So when you hear me on radio, expect the best. Expect great music. Expect great content. Expect 180 minutes of nothing but fun. You'll find me on the morning reset, 3 to 6 a.m., Monday to Friday. Siyabangena baba. Ay. Mbuleke.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 12:43 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. A crisis response company, Crisis on Call, has called on people to double-check emergency contact numbers as the festive season gets underway. They have warned that many assume their emergency contacts are correct and functional only to discover that during a crisis, the line is unavailable or unanswered. And to tell us more, we are joined on the line by Ruan Vermaak, a communications manager at Crisis on Call. Ruan, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Now, what are some safety plans that people should have in place, not just during the holiday seasons, but all year round?
So definitely, obviously, from Crisis on Call's point of view, it is very important to educate the public all year around to make sure that they have an effective national emergency number that they can phone, which in this case is that the Crisis on Call number is a very good number for all active Crisis on Call members. The problem is we saw in the media this passing year that there's so many emergency numbers that people want to try to remember, and everyone is saving their loved ones' numbers on their cell phones under the word ICE, which actually makes it a bit difficult because what if you can't get hold of that person or there's an issue with the cell phone signals or whatever. So the endless possibilities for problems is quite large. That is why we urge the public and the community to make use of the central national emergency number that can help them when there's a time of crisis.
Now, just you've touched on a few, possibilities, but what types of risks do people face when emergency numbers do not work?
So obviously, the number won't be answered. They won't be assisted in their time of emergency. It can lead to people that is, let's say, for example, either it's a motor vehicle accident or it can be a house robbery where people are tied up in the house. It can lead to like a long and awaiting response time. With the Crisis on Call number, yet again, 90% of our calls will be answered in 30 seconds, which makes it much more effective to the clients to make sure that they are, that help is on its way fast and it's reliable. So the problem is that to avoid this uncertainty and to avoid the problem of you waiting for an ambulance or a fire brigade or police or security, it's better to make use of the right channels and the right emergency numbers.
I want to know why is it that people just automatically assume that numbers that they have as emergency contacts will work? And generally, does it happen that most people will inform their emergency contacts that they have chosen them as their emergency contacts?
About 30% of people will inform the local security company that they are not going to be at home, or family and relatives and friends. The problem is that, if you don't have the right number, and people think that the numbers that are saved on my phone or have in a book somewhere at house, it is fine, it will still work, but numbers change during time. The number that you are used to that you can call in emergency is not effective anymore and can maybe lead to a period that you can't get hold of someone in a time of crisis. So it's better, yet again, to have a central number to, if we have a look at our first world countries such as Europe or America or some of those countries that got 911, which is a national emergency number that is effectively working. In South Africa, the national emergency number at this current stage, and there was a big insert in the media past this whole year about it, more than 10 million phone calls weren't answered and were dropped due to a lot of reasons. And that is why we have to look at something more reliable.
And just for interest's sake, how far or is this even going to happen to have just one emergency contact number that in South Africa, same as the Western countries?
If you have an emergency number that is connected, like the Crisis on Call number, to more than 2,700 emergency service providers nationwide, we can ensure that a provider will be dispatched to you in your emergency situation within a 10 to 15 minutes and 10 to 15 kilometer radius, which makes the response time much shorter, and the avoidance of traffic much better. So it gives you as client complete peace of mind when you are experiencing in that unplanned emergency situation. Remember, when we travel to areas like KZN or Cape Town, or, that is not your local province that you're used to, your neighborhood that you're used to and staying in, it is different. You don't know the hospital numbers that side. You don't know the security services that side. And most likely you don't know like your neighbors or people that side that you can relate to. And this can make it quite difficult, because if you have an emergency now, what do you do? Who do you phone? And this is exactly where the service of crisis on call can also be a massive impact for you and your loved ones.
Oh, Ruan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much.
That's Ruan Vermaak, Communications Manager at Crisis on Call, joining us on the line.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à dire ça? Est-ce que vous avez observé un certain nombre d'événements dans la vie? Est-ce que c'était par rapport à une expérience? Est-ce que vous avez rencontré des choses qui vous ont dit il faut de la patience, comme ça les choses vont venir au bon moment et les bons dieux pourra peut-être me visiter?
Oui, c'était justement un conseil que le Seigneur m'a fait inspirer pour donner à son peuple, parce qu'il y a la plupart des gens, pendant que Dieu bénit les autres, ils pensent que Dieu les a oubliés, et pendant que Dieu ouvre pour les autres, ils pensent que peut-être Dieu n'a pas pu écouter leurs prières. Alors, ce n'est pas le cas. Alors, Dieu bénit tout un chacun de nous avec son temps. Donc, le temps de Dieu est toujours le meilleur dans la vie de tout un chacun de nous.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Oh, it is that time of the day where we say a happy Monday and hello to Dabukhule Kuleni of The Upside. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, Lulu. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
How was the weekend?
Weekend was good.
Chilled?
Weekend was good. Chilled. And yours?
Very chilled, very chilled. We needed a chilled weekend. I
Yeah.
mean, especially after the past couple of weeks of rain and then a bit of travel. But this past weekend was a chilled one, and I'm very grateful for that. Here's what's coming up on The Upside this afternoon. Last week, sometime, I spoke about an Australian ban of social media for kids 16 and under.
Yes, I saw that.
Now we're going to unpack it, because it turns out the system is not that difficult to bypass. There's a young lady, a young girl, who bypassed it.
And how old is she?
She's probably, 13? She's 13.
wow.
She used her mom's picture to verify on Snapchat, and it just gave her full access.
Okay, so now that's something else they need to look at.
Absolutely.
But how do you feel about that? So, I think it's brilliant. I love it.
Implementation. I like the idea,
I
but
like the
implementation.
idea. I think it's brilliant, and I think maybe something like that could be brought to South Africa because,
My biggest concern is the implementation, how practical it is, because nowadays with AI and the advancement of AI now, digital awareness, it's so easy to circumvent and bypass so many things now. You use a VPN, you use your parents' IDs, whatever the case is. How they're going to enforce it, that's a different conversation. But I love the idea. Protecting children from content that is just so foul at times that they shouldn't be exposed to at such a young age. Yeah, so we'll be talking about that ban in Australia, and then also the psychological impact that this will have on the teenagers, because their neighbors, New Zealand, they don't have that ban. So what does that mean for the kids in Australia? I mean, are they going to get withdrawal syndrome, withdrawal symptoms rather?
Yes.
Not syndrome, but are they going to feel like, now I'm outcast, I don't know what's happening around the world? Psychologically, what impact is this going to have on them?
definitely there will be an impact. But for a country like South Africa, it would be great because children will go back to playing outside and doing more reading.
100%. And so, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And then there was a property in Bryanston that got hijacked. And we'll be unpacking that because over 100 people are living there now. It's turned into an informal settlement. The owners are like, oh, what happened here? We don't know what's happening here. We've got illegal squatters on our premises. What are their legal rights as the owners? And how do you, maybe you find yourself in a situation like that. You've got a holiday home somewhere. You've been away for quite a few years. and then you get back and find out that someone is squatting illegally on your property. What are the recourses that you can take? So we'll be unpacking all of that. That's all coming up on The Upside this afternoon.
That's the upside coming up from the top of the hour with Tebogo Lekuleni and Matseko Musito. Well, it is 12:53 Central African time, and we continue before we wrap up at the top of the hour. A lot still coming up on Africa Update. We go to a big story now also, where the United Nations and its partners have launched their global humanitarian appeal to save millions of lives where shocks hit hardest in wars, climate disasters, earthquakes, epidemics, and where crop failures occur. The immediate priority is to save 87 million lives with a $23 billion in funding. The highly prioritized appeal follows a year when humanitarian lifelines strained and in some places snapped due to brutal funding cuts. Tom Fletcher is the Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, OCHA. Let's take a listen.
So right now, 250 million people are in urgent need of humanitarian help. Yet the funding against our last humanitarian overview was only $12 billion, the lowest in a decade. And so this is a heartbreaking report to share. There is pain on every page. In 2025, hunger surged, food budgets were slashed, even as famines hit parts of Sudan and Gaza. Health systems broke apart. Thousands lost access to essential services. Disease outbreaks spiked. Millions went without essential food, healthcare, and protection. Programs to protect women and girls were slashed. Hundreds of aid organizations shut. And over 380 aid workers were killed, the highest on record. So as you've heard me say before, we are overstretched, underfunded, and under attack. Only 20% of our appeals are supported. And we drive the ambulance towards the fire on your behalf. But we are also now being asked to put the fire out. And there is not enough water in the tank. And we're being shot at. Last year, despite the challenges I've described, the humanitarian community reached 98 million people with our support. And I take heart from the conviction that so many leaders have, including the US president, that 2026 will be a year of peacemaking. A year that can create a once-in-a-generation opportunity to do something extraordinary. So let's do something extraordinary. We have a plan. This new overhauled global humanitarian overview is the foundation for our response. It is laser-focused on saving lives where the shocks hit hardest. Wars, climate disasters, earthquakes, epidemics, crop failures. Our priority for 2026 is to save 87 million lives. The plan includes 29 more detailed plans covering 50 countries. This includes $4 billion to reach 3 million across the occupied Palestinian territories, $2.8 billion for 20 million people in Sudan, the world's largest displacement crisis, and $2 billion for the 7 million Sudanese forced to flee. It includes $1.4 billion to save 4.9 million lives in Myanmar and those fleeing the crisis there, and much, much more.
That was Tom Fletcher, the Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, OCHA, speaking at the launch of the Global Humanitarian Overview 2026.
Your life, your rhythm, your Africa. Channel Africa. Find it for free on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Well, today in hashtag Africa Update asks, Benin's President Patrice Talon says the situation is completely under control in his country after the government thwarted an attempted coup thanks to loyalist soldiers with support from Nigerian forces. Our question to you today is, are we likely to see more coups or attempted coups taking place in Africa as more countries go to elections? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406-9126. Hashtag Africa Update Ask. And continue with us on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also join us on YouTube at Channel Africa 1 and send your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406-9126. We love hearing from you. And goodbye. We will do this again tomorrow.